Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Shed Adventures. We're here in Shed HQ again. We haven't ventured outside. This weekend, the weather is taking a turn for the worst. So we'll stay inside and we're going to have a look at climbing boots. Climbing boots, when I started in the 70s, a little bit about what went on before, the horrors of climbing with nailed boots and some way the horrors of climbing with leather boots. And we'll talk about how things developed over the period. So, how did it all start? Well, if you start looking at some of the really famous climbs, the things I spoke about in previous episodes, Nape's Needles and stuff, you will see that it looks like the rock has been attacked by a giant mad cat trying to scramble its way up. Well, in fact it has. It's been attacked by the old boys, the old fellas, with their nailed climbing boots. I'm sure people have heard of people talking about, I don't know, the old Coleman in his clinker boots, clinker nailed boots, or his hobnailed boots. Hobnailed boots may be more common. No surprise, the nail in the bottom of the boot is called a hob. It's a little stud. And in mountaineering boots, you'd have hobs in the middle, and round the end, you'd have things called clinkers, which are like sharp, sort of serrated nails that are literally banged into the leather bottoms of your boot, and that you would try and get some grip on the rocks, especially if the rocks had little bits of quartz in them. You could put your boots on sideways or even on the toe, and you could hopefully get a grip. Looking at the scratch marks running down some of these famous climbs, you can see that people weren't getting as much grip as you would hope. And when we were young and couldn't afford guidebooks and didn't really know our way around the hills, one of our ways of finding our way up some of these famous climbs was actually following the scratch marks from the pioneers going up there in their nailed boots. Just for a bit of fun, I'm going to, I don't think I will sing, but here's a really famous mountaineering song that would have been sung on a Saturday night in the pubs and round the campfires up in the lakes and up in Scotland, and you'll get the gist that it's all about the nailed boot. If it's climbing you go, there's a tale you should know that will make you both quiver and quake, of a hole in your toe where a clinker, that's the nail, should go, and it's all for the want of a nail. You're 1,000 feet high and you're nearing the sky, and you can't get a grip on the shale. Only 10 feet away, there's a perfect belay, and it's all for the want of a nail. There's scarcely a grip for a small finger tip, and 1,000 foot if you fail. There's a pumping machine where your heart should have been, and it's all for the want of a nail. Well, the good Lord looked down, and he laughed like a clown. Ha ha! There will soon be a rucksack for sale. If these boots don't deceive us, this guy's going to leave us. And it's all for the want of a nail. They scraped his remains off the sharp rocks below, and they gathered them up in a pail. And the toast that they drunk to the body that stunk, was it's all for the want of a nail. They buried him high where the cliffs meet the sky, and round him set a white wooden rail. And if you examine it, there you will find it was all for the want of a nail. Now this is the end of my sad little song. This is the end of my tale. Don't ever go with a hole in your toe. Use Vibrams, they never will fail. Well, genuinely, I've sung that song. I used to know it off by heart in the Pennygird and the Clackaig and various other pubs when we were youngsters. What are they saying? Well, basically, you've lost the nail in your climbing boot, because they literally were just hammered into the leather, and they had a tendency to twing out. But the interesting bit is the end bit. Use Vibrams, they never will fail. I think that's been added over the years, because Vibrams were the transformation from leather boots. And if we look on something relatively modern, GB Sports, Merrell's, good make, you'll see this little, well, it's not a diamond, but this little mark says Vibram. My advice, any shoes you buy, any climbing boots, mountaineering boots, skiing boots if you're doing ski mountaineering with tread on them, or even what I call climbing pimsoles. If in doubt, get a Vibram sole, because that really was the transition from leather studded boots to Vibrams. And here we have a leather mountaineering boot from the period. Mine, probably purchased in, I would think, the early 70s. Weighs an absolute ton. Complete nightmare to get off and on, particularly if you're out in the winter, because it would freeze solid overnight. I mean, it's not even soft now. I have to say, beautiful pair of wool socks. These would have been expensive in the day, but absolutely lovely. Yeah, super soft. But Vibrams had an issue. Obviously, when you had your clinkers and you had your hobs stuck in the ends of your boots, they gave you some help when you were winter mountaineering. When you were on snow and ice, you actually got some grip. And remember, there was no teetering up on these points in those early days with your nailed boots. You used the adze on your ice axe to cut steps, and you would zigzag big. Well, if you were lucky, the guy in front would be cutting nice bucket steps, so you could get your whole boot in there. And with the nails, yeah, it was doable given what people were trying to climb. But as soon as you got these rubber boots, you had a further problem. They had no grip on ice whatsoever, and a very good climbing friend of mine ended up in Fort William Hospital having stuck his ice axe in his ear. It would lovely to say it was a fall on the buckle or something, but no, he slipped over in the car park getting out the minibus. He didn't even have time to get his crampons on. So what was developed was these crampons. These, in this case, aluminium frames that you attached with these horrendous straps to your boot. And you needed to make sure that these really fitted. It took me quite a while to get these back onto these boots, because you have to stand, almost jump on them, because you want a tight fit. And then you've got the horrors with cold fingers of doing up all these straps and bolting them all together. Now, not a lot of things happened really in mountaineering boots. The old fellas, minus their clinkers, would recognise the top half of that boot very well. This is a pair of Galibra Super Guides, I think, Macaloos, Italian boot. In the day, I have to say, thanks to my mum, probably one of the best boots you could buy. Used in Scottish mountaineering, winter mountaineering, and well, we never climbed in the Alps in the winter, but we climbed in the summer, snow and ice. And this was as good as you got. But they got wet. They are amazingly heavy, and generally a bit of a nightmare. And I have to say, responsible for, certainly in the Himalayas, many great mountaineers coming back with toes missing, because they just didn't have the insulation to keep your toes warm. You had to do the boot up tight, then on top of that you had to do the crampon up even tighter. And one of the big issues in not getting frostbite is not restricting the blood flow to your feet any more than you have to do. And super tight up, laced up boots with crampons laced up even tighter over the top, absolute nightmare. One little development I have to mention, because in its day it was groundbreaking and brilliant, and whoever is the man at Berghaus, because that was the only make initially, this is a thing called the Yeti Gator, and this saved toes for certain. There's people walking around today because of Yeti Gators with a full set of pinkies. This gave life to the leather mountaineering boot, as guys were pushing up the scale of what they were trying to do in the Himalayas particularly, or the Alps in winter. Fits over the boot with a thing called a rand, this rubberized nightmare to get on. Two of you probably, one to hold the boot and one of you to try and get your fingers under here and get this rand on. Very vulnerable. You can see it's broken here. This bit used to wear out across the bottom. But Berghaus in the day had a fantastic re-randing service, if I can say that. But you basically had a boot that now was insulated and didn't get wet because it lived permanently inside this lovely Yeti gaiter. And you were waterproof pretty much with these and my short legs. You were waterproof up to your knee. So you've got a lovely dry boot in here. You can get in there, you can lace your boot up, you can zip yourself right up to the knee, do up the top. I think oh no, it's still there. You can pull it tight and you're waterproof up to your knee. Unbelievable walking up on a north face of the bend with a pair of leather boots. You'd get there, you're bound to be up to your knee or your calf in some bog somewhere on the way up. And you got wet boots for the rest of the trip and the climb. You could do this, you might be covered in mud, but you'd have beautiful dry feet, dry socks when they came out. Unbelievable. And for the Alps in the winter and for the Himalayas, they did insulated versions of these, and you can see it covered all your boot and your leg, and it saved toes, saved lives for sure. So what happened? Well, there was a revolution, and it really was. We went from really the dark ages to this plastic mountaineering boot, Vibram sole still, weighs probably half the weight of the leather. Clearly the boot is waterproof up to a certain level, and inside it's double, so you've got this beautiful inner boot, and you've got this outer boot which is quite frankly indestructible. So this could live outside the tent. Just throw it into the vestibule. You could get a little sweaty in there. Sometimes ice would form. You put your fingers in the morning. All you did was save a little inch on your cup of tea in the morning, chucked your tea in there, hot tea, swilled it round, chucked it out, ice gone, job's a good un. And you had this nice insulated boot. We'd also invented by then loop stick socks. These are some rather nice Arctic socks, courtesy of our Royal Marine friends, but the lovely loop stick socks, which were warm and cosy, and you had this lovely insulated boot. And you kept that on. You would take this off, you take the outer off, you jump in your tent, and you pretty much wear that all night. If you had to just pop out for a whittle or something, you could even just do that in these quickly. And if they were damp from sweat, you could take them off, hang them up in the top of the tent, over the top of the primer stove, and get some heat up there, and they dry. But you kept those inside your sleeping bag. So those would go on in the morning, and you'd just slip your boot in, and job done. And then the other thing that changed the game was the way crampons were fitted. A lot of ski mountaineering going on by then. This is an example. This is called a foot fang. I don't actually like them. I think they're horrible and they're too heavy. But anyway, and basically it's got a ski binding. So has to be tight otherwise. So instead of messing around literally for 20 minutes, half an hour, 3 or 4 of you trying to put your crampons on with your all the straps, you just walk up, put these on the floor, put the toe in there, just like a ski, put the clip on the back, clip it in place, put the safety strap on because you don't want it coming undone, and done. Bing bang bosh. And if I did put a new crampon on that leather boot, I would be here for about 20 minutes because you had to get it right, and you had to make sure it was all done up, and that can't go wrong, can't come off, and you've got a perfect boot with a really aggressive crampon. These used to be appalling for what they call balling up, i.e. snow sticking in the bottom of them, but that's by the by. So there we are. That's what we had. There's a quick sing-song, and a quick run through the horrors of heavy leather wet boots with a Vibram sole. the song about the old days, even before the 60s, so we're talking in the 30s and 40s when people used nailed boots, and the problems if you lost a nail. Use Vibrams, they never will fail. If you have a chance, still today, like the Jurassic period in dinosaurs, we are still in the Vibram period. I would say nothing's better. So if you're buying anything in the outside world, if you want a good sole, make sure it's got a Vibram tick in the box. So there we go. Thank you very much for your time today. Please like and subscribe. And I think next week we're going to talk about the biggest bullet in the world. It's right behind me, actually. And we'll have a discussion about some of the artifacts that came out of the Gulf War. And we'll talk about the biggest bullet in the world. So if you've got any views on leather boots and crampons, or any good stories about the issues you may have had, please stick them in the comments. Otherwise, have a great weekend. Bye bye now.